To you all. This is exciting. Just for little intros, we have our panelists here. I think I'm just waiting for one more, but I'll introduce the missionaries to the panelists. We're excited that you are able to join us and share with us your own journey with Regnum Christi. We are just starting our intensive online course. COVID reality kind of shuffled things a little bit. So we are 21 missionaries. We have 2 in Manila who are I'm recording this so they can watch this later because it's the middle of the night there. We have 5 from the United States, and then we have the rest, I think it's probably around 13 from Mexico. Some of them are going to come here and serve in the North American territory and at Overbrook Academy and then in Houston. And then the rest are going to be going, we have from Costa Rica as well. Sorry, don't let me forget that as well. So the rest of them are going to be going and serving in Switzerland at Le Châtelard at the academy there. And then we will be, the rest are, we have one's going to Milan and the others are going to Spain, to different cities there, Madrid and Barcelona. So I think I've gotten everyone. And the ones in Manila are staying there. They're serving in Manila. So these are the missionaries from Mexico, North American territories, and we're in the middle of our week where we are learning more and understanding more the vocation to Regnum Christi and what that means as being a formator in Regnum Christi. So that's our wonderful young woman that you see here. So now I'll do a quick intro of our panelists and visitors today. So we have Maria Vogel, can give a wave. Is Maria? Yes. Yeah. Hey, Maria.
So Maria. Intro or what?
Well, I'll just introduce you, and then I'm going to hand it over to Rachel, and she'll get you to do your actual introduction. So just a quick hi to each of our panelists, and then you'll have time to share more. So yes, we have Maria from Minnesota. She was a missionary out in Manila and has just finished at Benedictine College and was in charge of the young adult Regnum Christi members there on campus. It's a Catholic university in Kansas. So that's Maria. So welcome to you. Eileen Wick. Welcome to Eileen from California area, although she's originally Canadian. Regnum Christi many, many, many years. She'll share a little bit more, and has 6 beautiful kids and a wonderful husband, and has done many different things out there in the California area. For those that were going to go to San Jose and we're not going anymore, we would have met her, but we get to see her in person here. All right, and then we have Matthew Williams that is joining us from Michigan area, right? He was one of the first Eastwoodie Eastwoodie members here in the United States, and has been involved since, married, and his boys are Eastwoodie, and has done many different formator roles as well in Michigan. So we're welcoming Matt from there. And then we have Father Brett Tyra as well with us. Father Brett, he met Regnum Christi after his conversion to the Catholic faith out in Texas area, Houston area, and then joined Regnum Christi, and then discovered his call to the Legionaries of Christ. So we're happy to have you. And then we'll see when Fiorella arrives. She is from Miami, born here and living in Miami, and is a mom of 3 boys. She was also a missionary, 2 young kids, and has served also in formator roles here in Miami. So we will see when she's able to make it. So I am then also just going to introduce Rachel Dugal is going to be our moderator today. She's going to be kind of leading the question and answers with our panelists. She is from Georgia, from Atlanta. Went to one of our Regnum Christi schools there, Pinecrest Academy, and was a missionary last year and serving in Houston. So I am going to hand the mic over to Rachel. Welcome to you all.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel. Nice to meet some of you and good to see those of you that I do know. Welcome to our panel. I apologize. I've been having technical difficulties, so if anything happens, I'm sorry. But I think we're good for now. So yes, welcome. It's so beautiful seeing so many people from all around the world in just this one Zoom call. I think it's just such a testament to our charism and how worldwide it is, really. So that's just beautiful. So welcome to our lovely panelists. It's so great to have you all. And why don't we start with, I mean, we already have your names, but why don't you just tell us a little bit more about yourself, like where you're from and how you met Regnum Christi. So any of our panelists, if you feel called to answer first, go for it.
Okay, I'll break the ice here. So, Father Brett Tyra, I grew up in sunny Southern California, Orange County, a small town called Fountain Valley, which is between Anaheim, where Disneyland is, and Surf City, Huntington Beach. So, got the best of both worlds. And how I met Regnum Christi, it's a kind of a long story, but kind of cut down to the essentials. I was, after I converted to the Catholic faith, something that was on my heart was that I want to evangelize, to bring Christ to others. And I wanted to do missions with Catholics. And every other mission trip I could find at my university was always with Protestants. They seem to do missions all the time. And I was kind of frustrated. Like, don't Catholics do anything? Don't we evangelize? And someone told me, well, Catholics, we evangelize. We have hospitals. We build schools. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm not going to be a teacher, but I want to share my faith. What can I do, right? And so frustration, I kind of gave up for a while. But then I thought, hey, why don't I try to Google it, right? And because I'm a dinosaur, Google was brand new back then. And so I went on Google, I put in Catholic missions, and only one option came up. And I found Mission Youth. And Mission Youth led me to Regnum Christi, and one thing led to another. And that's how I found Regnum Christi.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Father. Anyone else want to share?
I can go next. I'm just watching to see if anybody else unmutes. My name is Matthew Williams. As Lisa mentioned, I've been in Regnum Christi for an awfully long time. Back in 1975, the first legionaries actually, there was no Regnum Christi at that time. The first legionaries were sent to the United States, and they picked up like 4 or 5 major cities to go to: New York, Washington, D.C., and I don't know quite why they picked Detroit, to be honest with you, instead of Chicago or anything else, but thanks be to God they did. They sent the 25-year-old Father Lorenzo Gomez to Detroit, Michigan. And in 1979, 4 years later, I guess you could say, I wasn't one of the first 2 or 3, but I was one of the first ECOID members to join here in the United States. And I've been absolutely in love with ECOID in particular ever since. And I often think of Regnum Christi as just a grown-ups version of ECOID, because ECOID is such a huge differentiator for us in terms of what we do. So yeah, a few things happened in between then and now, but we'll leave that for another conversation, I guess. That's it for me, Rachel.
What about Maria?
Hey, Rachel. I'm super happy to be here, guys. So I'm from Minnesota. I kind of was born into the movement. My parents were members, like literally when I was born in 1997, way back in the day. Probably not that far back for most of you guys, but and they helped start an RC school up in Minnesota, and so that was kind of an environment that I grew up in, and I grew up with consecrated and legionaries hanging out with me all the time, and so it was just funny. They were like my brothers and sisters. And now my oldest brother is a legionary, so they literally are my brothers and sisters in a special way. And I just got involved, and it was honestly through challenge and summer camp that really formed my whole entire spirituality, and it was just such a incredible experience to like become best friends with Jesus through those encounters. So long story short, there's a lot of things in between here and there that I've done through Regnum Christi, and but I associated in when I was 16 in July, probably, I don't know how long ago that was, but yeah, that's kind of how I got started. And since then, it's just been such a huge part of my life and my daily life, especially. So yeah, we'll get more into that later though.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. And Eileen.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me. So as Lisa said, I'm originally from Canada. Who knows where Alberta is? You all know, right? No. Thank you, Matthew. Father Brett knows, of course. Alberta above Montana, right? Way up in the north. I come from the most northern capital city of Edmonton. And it's very cold there. But I didn't know any different growing up. I thought that's the way everybody lived. So I just rolled with the punches. And I met the movement when I was about grade 9, grade 10. So that would have been 1989, 1990. I know that's a long time ago for some of you. It feels like just yesterday for me. And I first actually met the consecrated, and I'm still really close with the first consecrated who was in my area. She's now in Mexico, being called away to Monterrey very soon. So still keep in touch with her. And I didn't really know what the movement was when I met it. And I think it was very new for the consecrated coming to our area. It's very hard. I'm sure Lisa will tell you, and Father Brett too, when you're missioning in a new area and people don't know who you are. People didn't know of the Legion or the consecrated. And we owe a lot to those first missionaries that came up to our area in little cars and just kind of were begging to stay in parishes and give talks and get to know families. And that's the beginnings of my vocation there, just getting to know the consecrated. I had no idea quite what they were though until after high school. I was actually dating a fellow whose brother was a legionary, and I knew of these great priests, but I really didn't understand the whole idea of things until I went on my first retreat, which was about 4 hours away in the city of Calgary, which is now a hub for Regnum Christi. So on that retreat, I just remember very clearly thinking, maybe if I join this group, I'll get like a monthly magazine or something, because I was part of a different group before that called the Militia Immaculata, which is St. Maximilian Kolbe, and all we got was magazines, so I was into belonging. And it was Father Emilio. He just said, you will get in the line with the other ladies and you're perfect for this. So that's how I joined. Obviously, we don't discern in that way anymore, but God knew through his wisdom, he saw something there that was a call. And for some reason, even though I thought it was just a magazine, I was going to get a monthly newsletter, I just remember very clearly the Mass, and as women, right, we're drawn especially to the beauty of things. And the Mass was so beautiful. And for some reason, I remember looking down just at what I was wearing and thinking, this is a special dress. I'm getting something is happening in this special dress. And I can never find a dress quite like that again. But I remember it was like being clothed with Christ that day. Something very special was happening. And then after that, the rest of the story, as you know, of course, we get to work, we get formation, we build teams, and that's exactly what happened in Alberta until I met my husband, who was in California. So my story shifted, but that's also a really long story. So I'm now down here 17, 18 years almost in California. Still Canadian, totally at heart, but also American, and I absolutely love living in California.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So, Lisa, do you want to share? Are you part of the panel? I think you have a testament that would be beautiful to hear too.
Sure. I wasn't planning it, but I'll just real quick, maybe I'll leave most of the question answering to them because they're going to hear me the rest of the week. But I was in New Zealand. I was 17 years old and not very religious, not really practicing much. My mom was Catholic, so that's why I was Catholic. But I had a big experience of Jesus, and I fell in love with him, and I wanted to do something for the church. So I was looking for something. Regnum Christi was not very big in New Zealand, but there were a few men who had joined the Legionaries of Christ, and one of them came back to New Zealand right after he was ordained a priest. His name is Father Peter Devereux, who's the first one from New Zealand. He came back and he went to a few different cities in New Zealand to meet some of the women there and preach and do retreats. And I met him, and he told me about the missionary program back then. So the Holy Spirit just said, yep, that's what you have to do. And I ended up coming right after high school, and so I got picked up at the airport for my summer program, and that was the first time I ever met the Consecrated Women of Regnum Christi. I didn't know they existed or anything, and during that summer program, I got to know Regnum Christi, and I joined during that summer. I just felt like it was family. I felt like it was the way I saw the world, the way I wanted to serve Jesus and love Jesus, and pray. My spirituality too just seemed to fit perfect. So I joined. That was almost 20 years ago now. So
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. So this next question, some of you kind of already answered it, but if you'd like to elaborate, feel free. But so when did you officially join Regnum Christi, and why? So in the sense of what drew you to it, because there are so many people that maybe are involved in the movement and know about it, but that's not their charism and they're not drawn to it as much as other people are. So maybe what about RC drew you in, and when did you join?
Watching for unmutes again. I guess I'll go first. So I remember the first retreat that I went to in 1979. This is for ECYD, so not Regnum Christi strictly speaking, but I was in 6th grade, and Father Gomez opened the retreat with a little anecdote. He sat us all down. We had no idea what we were doing. We just kind of like just plunked us down in a chair. We were there for fun, it was going to be a fun weekend. Somebody had an ATV we were going to ride around, and we were just all looking forward to the random stuff. So we didn't really know what this retreat business was all about, but he plunked us all down in a chair. And he just started out with this story about how this group of kind of mischievous boys every day after school would go and like chuck stuff at trains. And we were kind of like, our interest was piqued. And they would run across this street and to the train tracks, and they would throw rocks at trains and put pennies on the tracks and that kind of thing. I won't give you the long version of the story, but I'll cut to the punchline. There was one of the boys whose name was Johnny. Father wasn't terribly original on names. His name was Johnny, and Johnny every day before crossing the road to the train tracks would make a visit to the chapel, Catholic school apparently, make a visit to the chapel and say simply, Jesus, this is Johnny, I love you, come play with me. And then he'd run out and join the others. Well, the story gets more interesting because one day, Johnny was always last, so he's always running across that street to get to the others. And one day he was running across the street, didn't look both ways, and a car hit him, and he was on the pavement there. Now, bear in mind, you're a sixth grader hearing this, right? He was on the pavement there, and he heard a voice from heaven saying, Johnny, this is Jesus, come play with me. And then he passed away. So this was the way I was introduced to Regnum Christi. But that was a really, really impactful story for me because it very clearly articulated what really is central to ECYD, and for me is central to Regnum Christi also, which is what I'll call now as a 51-year-old man, the contemplative life, the life of friendship, as Maria said, with Christ. And what drew me in from that moment forward in that retreat and throughout my many years of life since was this introduction to friendship with Christ as a part of our ordinary, in the case of a 6-year-old or 6th grade boy, your ordinary mischievous life, just bring everything to Jesus, be a friend of Christ. And this to me is an enormous differentiator and a reason for us to dedicate our lives to this movement is we are called to introduce people from a very young age to this contemplative life, to this friendship with Christ. And honestly, I don't know another international organization that's specifically focused on that. And why? Because I think that many people actually don't have, I'll put it this way, people wouldn't articulate it this way. Honestly, I think many adults don't have faith that Christ can touch the heart of a young person with a great deal of depth and in a way that's going to remain. And so very few people focused on developing that friendship with Christ from that young tender age on, when it's really most important and most formative. So, you know, we've been through a lot as a movement, and we've been through a lot of ups and downs, crises, a lot of emotion for each of us and all that during difficult years. But I'll tell you, what kept me, you know, without hesitation remaining as a Regnum Christi member and devoted to this movement, is that one differentiator, which I think all of you are going to be able to participate in a very special way as you come into contact with young people as you go forward now. So, so that's really what did it for me, Rachel.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Also, panelists, if you ever feel like you want to add on to what someone else said, or you have an experience similar to that, definitely feel free to jump onto that train. Don't feel like held down by the specific questions. If you just feel called to share something, of course, go for it. So does anyone else have an answer to that question or something to add on to what Matthew was saying?
Yeah, I'll go. Rachel.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no worries.
We need like a little hand. You go ahead, Maria.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So I guess my story. I like had been thinking about or people had asked me like, oh, you should incorporate Maria. Like this is perfect. This is your charism. Like all growing up, and I was just like, no, this is I'm gonna choose this for myself. I was stubborn and I liked telling people no. So that was kind of just like different consecrated or people would invite me to be like, oh, you should associate, and I was like, no, no, I'm gonna make this my own decision. And it was just through all these like experiences in camp and stuff like that where I was walking, it was kind of ridiculous. I think I was like in a Batman costume or something. I was like in spiritual direction at the same time as well. And we were like walking through this woods, and I was like, it was just like hit me that like this is such a weird experience. Like, why am I like right here, right now, in spiritual direction, in a Batman costume? Like, what the heck? And I was like, and this like happens a lot. Like, it's like I'm doing something completely ridiculous and like stupid that no one else would be doing, but like I'm doing this for like the love of Christ and like sharing my faith with these girls, and like this sets my heart on fire, and that's why I'm doing these kind of like ridiculous things. And so I like went to the chapel, still hadn't changed for my Batman costume, and I was like, Jesus, like this sets my heart on fire. I don't really know or understand what this is, but like I'm all in. So I associated, and it was just this overwhelming like this is my family, you know. And like after that moment, and I think this is true for everyone, you look back on with hindsight and you see like, oh wow, I now understand like what an ecclesial movement is, and it's easier to say like, oh, I see all these other movements in the church and all these other charisms and the beauty that they bring, and how other people like find like Christ through all of these different movements. And the way that I like to describe it, I guess, is that whatever we have, this analogy is going to be very accurate. I'm a kind of like a forestry intern right now. I'm like a tree doctor. So the analogy that I've made way before I had this job was that whatever, the Catholic Church, we have this forest, and all of these different charisms and movements are all different trees that we wander through this forest looking for ways to reach Christ. And when we find our tree, we climb that tree and we go closer to Christ. And then we find our branch on the tree, which like I found as a lay member, you know, and Lisa's found that as the consecrated woman on this Regnum Christi tree, you know. So it's that discovery, and some people walk through this forest for a while. And I'm just so thankful that Jesus has given me that gift, you know, since I was little. in so many weird ways. And my heart is like still very much on fire for Christ. And he shows me that in little ways every single day, like if it's big or little. So that's kind of how I like to like visualize it too. And I've helped a lot of people discern like in or out of Regnum Christi and being a member. And I don't know, that's a beautiful process to watch. But yeah, that's kind of my story of discernment into Regnum Christi.
Wow, that is a beautiful analogy. Thank you for that, Maria. Well, our final panelist has arrived. Fiorella, thank you for coming. Right now, we're talking about what drew us into Regnum Christi, but if you'd like to just give a short introduction of yourself, and if you want, you can answer that question too. Why did you join Regnum Christi, or what drew you to Regnum Christi?
Sure. So I've been in Regnum Christi. Sorry for my husband who's in the background. He's just being silly. We're all working from home, as you can see. But and I have 3 boys.
Zoom bomb.
I have 3 boys. I'm an attorney. How old am I? 37. And I've been in Regnum Christi since I was a kid. I started with Challenge on ECYD. Maybe I was probably around 10 or 11, and I would go to the Challenge retreats. Then I became a Challenge team leader. Then in college, I got a little bit, sidetracked, but the faithful consecrated would come and visit me at the University of Florida and give me spiritual direction. And I would go to Mass and go to some of the retreats on campus. And then they invited me to a missions in Mexico. And that was, for me, an amazing experience. I went to missions in Mexico. And then I became a coworker after I graduated college for a year. And it was the most amazing year ever. And after that, I went to law school. I got married, and 3 kids later, here I am. So, and then I guess to answer the question about Regnum Christi, I incorporated officially into Regnum Christi when I was on the missions in college in Mexico. It was like a mega mission during Holy Week, and there was thousands of missionaries there, super on fire for God. And it was just such an amazing experience to see so many young people living their faith and just trying to be, good people and serving God. So it was very inspiring for me. And that was one of the motivations for me to discern my coworker year. So hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late. I have 3 boys to battle with.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here. So this, sorry, I know Eileen, you were going to speak right before. Feel free to share, or if not, no worries.
It's okay. You can move on to the next question. No worries.
Okay. Well, just to pop in this idea also, I think Lisa talked with, if you have any photos you'd like to share, we can definitely look at some of those too, and you could elaborate on your experience in the photo. But so does anyone have photos they would like to share from any specific RC memories or anything like that?
I have some, actually.
Beautiful.
So I was trying to find my coworker album, but I could not find it. It's I was blessed to have an audience with Pope John Paul II when I went, and it was amazing. But I did go on another thing called a cursillo for, well, it's basically like a month in Rome and Jerusalem. And then I have some pictures from when I went over there to Rome right here. And we went to Jerusalem, and it was, let me see if I find the picture of all the people here. We went to see Pope Benedict, and it was very special. We had an audience with him as well. It was a private audience in his kind of looked like this, to see if you guys can see. And sorry, I have like the book here, and I'm trying to. So it was a beautiful experience. I definitely encourage you. I think they still have it. It's a summer formators course. That's what it was. and I had an amazing experience. It was just, you learn a lot in here's the big group of consecrated and young people from all over the world. This one was in Spanish, and we had classes in the Regina Apostolorum, and they would give us classes on all types, and then we would go on pilgrimages all around Rome. We would go to Siena. I believe this is Assisi's right here, and we just got to see like all the holy places in Rome, the basilicas, and then we got to go. This was Father Alvaro Corcuera, which was the director back a few years ago. And then we went to Jerusalem. Let me see if I find a good picture of Jerusalem. We went for a week on a pilgrimage there, and we just got to go everywhere, which was just so beautiful. Let me see here. So here we're in the desert in Jerusalem here. But they took us to all the holy places. We did the Via Crucis. We went to, let me see here. Here's the ruins and the Via Crucis that we did. You guys can see it. But it was, that's just the formators course that I was able to find pictures for. And there's just so many amazing things in Regnum Christi that you can be a part of, that you can go to. So I encourage you, within your means to do the activities and go different places and get out of your city, because sometimes I'm from Miami and here we don't have that much going on. So I was just blessed to be able to go to missions in Mexico, to be able to go to this formators course in Rome. And there's just so many wonderful things that you can learn and grow, and just take advantage of them, because that has really helped me become a faithful Catholic and stay kind of in line with our church and with Regnum Christi. I'm actually a section director here now in Miami. And it's just good to give back, because I received so much when I was young. And I know that if it wasn't for Regnum Christi and my formation, I really wouldn't be here today. So I'm just very grateful for my experience, for all the consecrated that really helped me through, especially as a young person, and I'm just grateful.
Thank you so much for sharing those pictures. That seems like such a cool experience. That's amazing. So does anyone else have any photos or pictures to share? I know it's a little hard, or if you have them digitally, you can share your screen too.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Fiorella, thank you for sharing. It brought back a lot of memories and huge smiles as she was sharing, because I'm like, what year were you a formator in Rome? I did the formator course as well in the year 2000, and I really want to echo what she said, especially growing up in Alberta, in Edmonton, where we started out small and we didn't have legionaries present or consecrated present. And thanks be to God, the women, especially the women in Calgary, kept promoting and sending us, like, go to the US, go to these conferences, go to Rome. And it just so happened, like, at that point in my life, I was working as a nurse, and I would work 12-hour shifts so I could bank my time and squish all my hours together and work like a mad nut, and then get 2 or 3 weeks off to experience time with the movement. So I really want to echo that, what Fiorella said, that was foundational in really soaking up every opportunity that I could before I had kids. So having said that, I'll share my screen, and I because now Lisa knows I can barely go to the bathroom. Like, it's amazing. And I'm here in my 16-year-old son's very stinky, sweaty, smelly room to hide from, I'm sure, the baby who's about to wake up. So let me share my screen. First of all, Fiorella mentioned, can you all see this?
Yes.
Thumbs up. Yeah, okay, so here, but I had to share this one with Father Corcuera because Fiorella mentioned him, and we just had his anniversary of passing, I want to say a week ago now. And so this was at the YFE in San Jose. I can't remember the year, I think 2005. I was pregnant there with my second son, James. And so I was in charge of the promotion for the YFE, so you can blame me, because to date, it was their biggest flop ever. Nobody wanted to travel all the way to California for a YFE. So we had really low attendance, but it was so amazing to be part of. But the funny thing about it, and you all get this already, you've all experienced this in some way, that sometimes apostolates just don't go the way we planned, right? So we'd spent all this time and energy promoting, and the day that I get there, and this was like mommy lesson number one, the day that I get there, my oldest son, who at the time was probably like 13 months, he had his first major asthma attack. And one of the legionaries there, who was a doctor, we brought him straight to father, and he's like, oh yeah, you need to get him into the ER right away. So I remember sitting there for 3 days through the YFE in the ER, curled up in a bed with my son, and just really, leaning into Mama Mary and into the small moments of life that really make us our authentic selves. And here, although the YFE was going on and I had FOMO, like fear of missing out, I was really right where God wanted me to be. And so beautiful that the very final mass, right as my son was discharged from the hospital, my husband Vincent and I here on the left were able to bring up the gifts and be with Father Alvaro and receive his special blessing on our baby James. I have another photo later of, I don't think I have it here, but of him giving a blessing. Oh, sorry, I'm not trying to zoom in on my stomach. I was really tiny at that time, but trust me, I get ultra, ultra big. So I will share with you some quick photos here because I want Father Brett and Matthew to be able to share real quick too. Just going to zoom through some of these. Okay, this was years ago. This is my family before, when we had only 4 kids and one of our service dogs. We have several kids on the autism spectrum. So she
It didn't switch, Eileen.
It didn't switch?
No,
Oh no. What are you seeing?
just the first one with Father
Oh.
Alvaro.
Okay, hold on. Let me see. I'm going to try something very technical here. So technical, it's going to amaze you how technical it is. Okay, so screen sharing has stopped. Okay, so we'll try this one more time. Has it switched? Do you see?
Yes.
Am I
Yeah.
that technical? Okay, great. Now I can't see any of you, but that's hopefully okay. So this is, yeah, my family from years back. Back when we were 5. Okay, now this is a photo of when I was probably 20, 21, and it was one of the first female all section director meetings in North America. So I thought this one was nostalgic. I know none of you know these.
Awesome.
You know some of these old ladies.
I don't think so, but the style's awesome.
Style. I think this was in Detroit, right? Yeah, this is Detroit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, most of these, some of these might have been your mom's. I'm not sure.
Yes, my mom is front and center there in the light blue.
Is she really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, is this your mom right here?
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. I'm like, what is her first name? That's a great photo and great memories of being with these great, great women. Okay, really quick. Sorry, I'm trying to find family photos. And this is our most recent family photo. This is our number 6 guy. Big, big babies. And this is our Regnum Christi section from Christ the King. I think that's all the photos I've got in here. Something at the retreat center. And I will stop sharing my screen again. So that's my crazy little, Lisa knows that I've lost all my photos through an accidental lack of uploading to the cloud. So I tried to find something for you, but yeah, I just piggybacking a little bit too on what was said before. I think Matthew put it really well too, that it was the passionate love for Christ. I remember early on, one of the first talks that I received in Regnum Christi that really stayed with me was the idea of this very practical, personal Jesus. And that was displayed for me, especially through the consecrated in little ways. In the middle of the night, when we'd have adoration on a retreat, one of the consecrated shared that she'd get herself ready, even put a little like put a little spritz of perfume on, like do something because you're encountering a living God. And that really changed my relationship early on for the Lord, so that even when I'd be like beatboxing in my car, you know, driving the streets of Edmonton on the ice, I'd be like listening to love songs and I would translate them to our Lord Jesus. And there was a love song years ago, I think it was like Mark Anthony, I can't remember which one it was, but I would like make the words about he and I. And to this day, that's the marker. That's the marker of what really drew me to Regnum Christi. That and those women that I showed you there, those section directors, you know, they used to really tease me because I was a little piddly squat compared to them. And I was still single and I was looking after a section of married women, like just strange, you know, strange experience, but such a blessed experience for me because those women showed me what I could do if I used my gifts for the Lord. And although the consecrated and legionaries showed me so much too, it was seeing those other women because it showed me what I could be called to as a lay person, as a potential married woman. And it showed me how to use those gifts while having like a little baby in my arms, you know, and that was a beautiful lived experience for me. And that drew me into the movement. Although I joined, like you said, on the fly, right? But ultimately that is what shaped my heart. So I'm going to stop chatting now and let Father Brett or Matthew, maybe they want to share.
Go ahead, Father.
So actually, I don't have any photos because I joined Regnum Christi the summer between my junior and senior year of college, and then I joined the Legion right after I graduated from college. So those 12 months, I guess I didn't have a camera or anything. Then poor college student, right? And so I just wanted to maybe, I guess, share some thoughts of, why did I join Regnum Christi? And I think I remember right after my conversion, after I became Catholic, I'd gone through RCIA, basically starting in October up to the Easter Vigil. And then after you're received into the church, you receive the baptism, confirmation, First Communion. And after that, that's it. There are no more classes to take. There's no more meetings to go to. And you're just kind of on your own. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, I'm 21 now. I don't want to be just on my own for the next 70, 80 years, right? That's not going to be cool. And so, I thought, okay, there's got to be, other people out like me, right? And I can't be the only one who wants to live for Christ in a very committed way, wants to, go to adoration, wants to pray the rosary, wants to go on missions, wants to just hang out with other good people, have fun. And so if I didn't find Regnum Christi, I probably would have invented it because I needed it, right? And so, for me, it wasn't so much about the ideas, about the principles. For me, Regnum Christi it's the community, it's the people. And I remember as a college student, do you know how hard it is to find other Catholic guys to pray with? I mean, every prayer meeting I go into is like 9 girls and then maybe 2 guys, right? Every other time, I'm like, where are the Catholic men, right? Okay, there's got to be some Catholic guys out here. And so for me, finding Regnum Christi, it's like, okay, I finally found my band of brothers, right? These guys I can be real with, these guys who are committed to living their faith, who are on fire for Christ, who, want to go out and change the world for the better for Christ. These guys who, will be roughing it playing basketball, and then we'll go to the chapel to pray, and then we'll go off some, crazy scavenger hunt in the city, and then, be hanging out, putting back a few beers and just relaxing, and just like real guys, but like Catholics. And when you find that, you realize, look, I could do this. I could live the rest of my life as a Catholic. I could do, another 70, 80 years as a Catholic because I'm not alone. And then you realize it's not enough just to receive this, not just to enjoy the benefits. I found something good. I found something that I want my whole life. I found something that's worth fighting for, right? This is precious and this is worth fighting for. And so I think that's when I made the decision that, I want to be a part of this forever. I want to join. I want to be a part of this family. And I know that I'll have their back and they'll have my back. And the funny thing is that after I joined Regnum Christi, I found that I have friends pretty much everywhere in the world. And it shocked me just how much it mattered being a member of Regnum Christi. I remember I was helping another legionary. We were trying to set up for a retreat, and of course we're behind schedule and everything. And Father forgot the projector, so we didn't have a projector. And so one of the other RC men said, "Hey, I got a projector at my house. You want me to go back and get it?" And I was like, "Oh no time. We don't have time to go back and get it. You're like your house is like 2 hours away, right? I need your help to set up." And then Father looks over at me and said, "Hey, Brett, he can get it for you." And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a car. So Father says, "Hey, just give him your keys to your house and give him the keys to your car. He'll go get it for you." Those guys looking at me like, what? I'm not going to give this punk kid like my keys to my car and keys to my house just so I can get a projector. And then Father just said, "Brett is Regnum Christi. Period. No questions asked." Reaches in the pocket, takes out his keys to his house, his car, gives to me, and that's it. And just the amount of trust that was given because I'm part of the family, I'm like, wow, this is really something special. And so there's many more things I could say, but for me, it's just being part of a huge spiritual family. And later on, you discover the legionaries, the consecrated, everybody in this family. And for me, that's priceless.
Thanks for sharing, Father. Matthew, do you have any pictures or anything you wanted to share?
So what I really need to share, first of all, is a little quick anecdote about my conversion story. So between 5th grade and 12th grade, I didn't do any homework. I was lazy. I never did homework, or I would do it in class and that kind of stuff. Well, this part of my conversion story is still ongoing because I didn't do my homework for this and I didn't prepare any photos. So I apologize and please pray for me. But that said, not unlike Father Brett, I do have a couple verbal pictures to paint for you. One is when I was in high school, I remember vividly. So I mentioned to you how I joined ECYD, and then ultimately I joined Regnum Christi and when I was 15 years old. And I had spiritual direction, which was so amazing. How many Catholics do you think get spiritual direction at those ages? So few. Another amazing differentiator in terms of working with youth that Regnum Christi provides, right? But I remember, the whole spiritual life, it's this ongoing drama in our lives where Christ brings us closer and closer to himself, purifies us, detaches us from things created, attaches us more and more to him. And that drama begins as soon as we start engaging with him, right? It doesn't matter what age. And in high school, I remember very vividly having two loves in my mind and weighing them and thinking about making a decision. And one love was the love of God, which is given to us freely. And at that time, in my immature mind, my mind is still immature, by the way, I still don't do my homework. But anyway, in my immature mind, I was thinking, well, God's love is free, but there's nothing kind of challenging and fun about it. It's kind of there. But it's cool, it's big, it's huge, it's really touched my heart. And then I had this other thing on the other hand, which was human love. I had a crush on some girl in my class since the 3rd grade, and I still do. And luckily, I'm married to her, so that worked out okay. But I had this idea of human love, this very idealistic, sort of chivalrous view of human love, where I'd go and win over the heart of some wonderful, wonderful woman, beautiful woman, and so forth. And that sounds like a lot more fun and a lot more interesting. But I realized I was called to place God's love first. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you don't get married or all these other things, but God was definitely calling me to make a choice in terms of priorities. And, that really served me well, having made that choice at that time, because later on I became a Legionary of Christ. That's part of my Regnum Christi story. And then God called me away from that. I've had what could look like on its face a very confusing life. I've had a couple of different vocations. I've tried things and failed miserably at them. Other things I didn't try to do, but somehow they succeeded and I got in the middle of them and wound up benefiting from that success. But what really benefited me was that decision early on. And I'll give you one verbal picture. So, and I actually have a picture of this somewhere. And if I do my homework next time, I'll bring it. But when I was a legionary, we went into our yearly 8-day silent spiritual exercises, and we'd already entered the silent zone. And the person at the time who was in charge of apostolate for Rome, I was in Rome, Italy, Father Juan Jose Arrieta, called me to his office with a bunch of other guys, and we were like, what is going on? We were very confused because you never break that silence. You never, you don't talk to anybody. And he said, hey, look, he was very matter of fact, a true Spaniard. And he said, look, guys, Mother Teresa has called up and she wants a group of 3 guys to go and accompany her and just sort of act as not like bodyguards, but just to make sure she's kind of safe as she goes from one part of Rome to the other. So we wound up going up and picking up Mother Teresa and walking down the streets of Rome with Mother Teresa. And what I'll never forget about Mother Teresa, and this dovetails with the other piece of my story, this verbal picture, is I went up to Mother Teresa. I really wanted to exchange words and have a little encounter with her. And I got to walk with her by myself for a minute. And I said, Mother Teresa, would you please pray for me that I'll be a holy priest? And she took my hand and she did something. You can look this up. It's a thing. I didn't memorize the words, but she did this with other people apparently too. She took my fingers and she said, I want, I wish, I will, I've decided to be holy, or something like. I mean, it felt like something out of preschool, right? And I'm telling you, this 85-year-old nun, she was 85 at the time, if I remember correctly. She was like a little girl, and like she was really little. She was like about up to my belly button, it felt like. And she was just full of joy and kind of bouncing along on the street. I thought she was going to play hopscotch or something. She was so sweet and so simple. This was in the middle of what we would later discover was a spiritually difficult time for her. But what I gained from that encounter is that if we make our decision for Christ, we don't really have to worry about anything. You know, I used to get my head all tied in knots. Like, how am I going to go and do something amazing for Jesus? How am I going to go convert the heathen and change the multitudes and change society? God calls us to very ambitious things in Regnum Christi. He wants us to change culture. And I used to get my head tied in knots around that. I learned from Mother Teresa and from other wonderful examples as well. When we give our heart to Christ and place him as the priority, he gives, in my case, he gave me multiple beautiful vocations. He gives us a beautiful vocation, and he himself fills that vocation with great experiences. He himself fills that vocation with fruitfulness. And we literally don't have to worry. We can just trust him and just follow his call. So I guess that's my thought for you guys as you start this period is get ready for him to take you places you don't expect. Whatever you're expecting is coming next. Might not be it, doesn't matter. But you know, as St. Paul says, you know the person in whom you trust. You know that you trust Jesus. And you know, however weird or awesome or whatever the next steps become, you know he's with you. And if you give your heart to him first and foremost, and then all of your other loves are relative to that, you're going to have a wild ride and it's going to be great. So there's a verbal picture for you.
Wow, thank you so much. That's such a cool story. Wow, what a beautiful testament too. So I know, Maria, I don't know if you got the chance to share, if you have any pictures or anything you wanted to share.
Nope, just keep on going. I'm on my phone. Also, yeah, you
Perfect.
probably don't want to see any pictures from.
So, well, we are getting close to hitting the hour, but why don't we open up the floor to any questions that any of our missionaries have for the panelists? And if you have any like questions that you want to be anonymous, you can message it to me or to Lisa privately. Or if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat. Or of course, you can come off mute and ask a question if you have one. And if not, then we can just wrap things up.
Well, while people are thinking of questions, I just wanted to slip in a little. I know you guys are doing an online summer course, which kind of sucks, but don't I kind of wanted to give a piece of advice. Just don't let it get in the way of like Jesus working in your heart and transforming this time, because this is an incredible time. Don't compare it to like past years and stuff like that. And this year is like really going to change your life. And like, I know that because I did it like a couple of years ago. And so as all these other panelists, and give it like your 100%. Don't like flake out on anything. One piece of advice my sister gave me before my year was like, if you go to bed or if your head touches the pillow and you're not like immediately tired or like falling asleep, like you're kind of doing your year wrong. Like give it all, like 110,000% to Christ. And because you're young, like this is the time you can pull that off. And this is the time when your heart is open, you're free. Like your life isn't bogged down by like crazy like kids and like all these other responsibilities. Like this is like almost like the prime time that Jesus is going to work in your heart. And like go to the chapel at midnight, you know, do all those things that you have the opportunity for. And it's going to be a crazy transition because you haven't had some like formation course, but that's totally fine. Like he's going to work through it. So that's like little word of encouragement for all you guys, because I know it's kind of like a tough situation to be at home and go through this. So yeah.
Thanks, Maria. It makes me think what I love a lot about Regnum Christi too is that we do usually put 100% into everything we do. We're pretty passionate people that join this cause, right, of Regnum Christi.
Do any of our other panelists have a piece of advice to our lovely missionaries?
I have a quick something. I want to echo what Maria said. I still look back on it. I did it in 2004, and it was still one of the best years of my life. There were so many little details that God did during that year, and just to be aware of those little small things that he can do for you. I'm going to share a really quick one. I was in missions in Mexico. I did my year in Mexico, and I remember being dead tired. I was sick with like flu symptoms during the missions. It was a whole week. And I just wanted to have pancakes one day and orange juice and not walk like miles. Because usually in Mexico, you walk up and down mountains and you go eat with the people of the town and they give you like chicken feet for breakfast and, you know, stuff like that. And I wanted like comfort food. I was sick with a runny nose, and lo and behold, that morning we were picked up in a van, which I've never been picked up in a car in missions, and I was given pancakes for breakfast. So, you know, God is just very special. He did little things like that during my year, and I could just see and feel his love. And also take notes. I still have my notes from my missionary year, from my missionary formators course, from when I did the 8-day silent retreat, which I've never been able to do another 8-day silent retreat just as a coworker. And it was the biggest blessing ever. And I had the most simple lights. And out of so many silent retreats that I've done that I do every year, you know, it's 3 or 4 days. I still remember the lights, or one main light that I had during that 8-day spiritual exercises back, you know, 15, 16 years ago. And it was so simple, but so true. You know, my light was, God loves you. That was as simple as that. But it was so profound, the experience. And I have notes from that silent retreat that I still look back on. And it's just take advantage. This year is going to be amazing for you, for your growth, for your spiritual growth. And you will look back on it. And if you really give it your 100%, I know it's tough this year because of everything going on, but I admire you all for embarking on this mission, even with everything going on in our world. So go at it, and you're gonna look back and you're just gonna, you know, wish to be back in this year. So enjoy it.
Thank you for that, Fiorella. Anyone else?
I guess I would just chime in as well, and you know, to encourage you not to put God in a box. I think that, you know, we just don't ask enough of God, right? We tend to think small in that, and God has so much bigger plans for us than we would ever imagine, and so much more happiness and love for us than we imagine. And now looking back, you know, 25 years later from this first encounter with Regnum Christi, I really see that that's probably one of the biggest things that I have kind of done, like to block God in my life, was not receiving how much he actually wants to give me. And so I would keep that in mind. And then secondly, you know, God is the great restorer, right? I like to call him the HGTV king, right? He likes to restore things. And so he comes along, you know, this whole plan of salvation, and he comes up with a better plan. You know, we fell from grace. We ate that apple and we ruined the plan. But God was like, you know what? I'm just going to make the plan that much better. And that's how we can not limit God. He always has something so much better. So I would look at that in your program, you know, your COVID year. Each of you were called and specifically made for this year. And God's plan is better than what it would have been if you were meeting in person. So look for those opportunities that this is going to be bigger and better than you ever imagined. And just don't limit our Lord, right?
Yeah, and I think I would build a little on what you were saying, Eileen. And I taking a little from what Maria is saying as well. Being the old guy in the room, I reflect back on John Paul II, and I remember being very impacted when he on multiple occasions would just pound home that refrain, "Do not be afraid. Don't be afraid of Christ." And early on when I would hear that, I was thinking it was like this encouraging thing, like, you know, perk up, be happy, whatever. But then I realized there's a really practical piece of advice. Like, when we are afraid and we give into our fear, we actually reduce what God can do through us. And he's very patient, right? I would almost argue that the course of our life is once we engage with Christ is a process of him sort of prying open our hearts, making them bigger, and removing those constraints of fear, and building the love that Fiorella was talking about, that sense that God really loves me. But my encouragement to you guys would be, as you embark on this, this experience, much of which is unknown to you, it's normal to be maybe a little nervous about this or that. But when it comes to Christ, don't be afraid of what he might ask of you. Don't be afraid of what he might give to you, more importantly. But just as again, John Paul II said, blow the doors of your hearts open to Christ. Tell him, even if you don't feel it, Lord, I am all yours. I give myself completely to you. Do whatever you want with me. And then trust him that you don't have to have what all of that is figured out. Trust that he'll take you up on that he's going to fill out that blank check, but he's not going to fill it out with things he charges of you, like just exhaustion and horrible sacrifice and difficulty. He's going to fill out that check with gifts that he's going to give to you. And your willingness to trust him and to make whatever sacrifice is necessary in order to keep that doorway of trust open, he's going to reward that with the most amazing life you could possibly imagine. This step that you're taking is a huge step in trust. I encourage you guys to build on that. Anything that smacks of fear, even if you don't feel like you're rejecting the fear, tell Jesus that the fear is not you, you're not going with it, and that you trust him to take your lives and make of them what he wants of them. And you will have a wild ride. You will have an amazing life if you put all your trust in him. So that's my advice.
Beautiful. Thank you. Father Brett, do you have any last words?
Yeah, just a couple of ideas. Most important one is be yourself. Be free to be you. What I'm going to say is very important. You're not giving these best time of your life as a missionary to prove to God that you love him. You don't need to prove anything to him. He already loves you. And just showing up every day, that makes him happy. That's important to remember, because the devil is going to play with our minds. He's going to, try to get under our skin and get us to think about ourselves. And what happens is we'll get to the end of the day and I'll be thinking, was that an easy day? Was that a hard day? Was that fair? Did someone say something that was true? Did they hurt my feelings? And really, all of that's true, okay? Those things did happen, right? I'm not gonna, pretend that they didn't. But you're missing the big picture. At the end of each day, we ask ourselves, how did Christ feel today? And let me tell you this. Do you see someone so young, so generous, so willing to follow him all over the earth, wherever the mission is? That makes him happy. I'm going to promise you that even on those days where you feel rotten, you've got a headache, you're sick, things didn't go well, someone misunderstood you, someone said something about you behind your back or whatever, it's so small, because that day our Lord is pleased with you. And he's thinking, she could have been anywhere else in the world, and she chose to be with me. She could have chosen to do anything she wanted to do, to entertain herself, to have fun with her friends, to pass away the time. But she wanted to share her time with me. And so remember, this time is a shared time. It's a shared experience. It's your drama, together with Christ's hope and trust in you. So don't lose perspective. The two go hand in hand. And even on your worst day, even on the day you just want to go in your room, jump in bed with your clothes on and hide under the blanket, our Lord's still proud of you and still happy and still hopes in you. So go forward with great confidence, because already you've consoled the heart of Christ. already, even now, you're making him happy. And you'll never lose that.
Wow, beautiful words. Thank you so much, Father. Well, I think that wraps up our beautiful panel. But before we all go, we need to take a group picture. I'm sure you guys are used to this by now with all of the Zoom meetings we've all had. But everyone to smile for our fun little group picture. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. And just for me, coming from a former missionary this past year, I know that God has so much in store for you. And like coming from the tail end of, like, I guess the beginning of this coronavirus, and you guys are going straight into it, know that don't take anything for granted, especially I think we've all learned that in times like this. But for me, it was like one normal week, goodbye for spring break, and I get back and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to go home. So really just enjoy every moment you have and know, like, even though, like Father, like everyone else was saying, the little things that seem difficult and are hard, of course it is hard and it's okay to feel upset or frustrated or down, but know that like it is all of this entire year is God's gift to you. And that's something that I was told in my summer course that really stuck with me. Like, and I think it's so easy for us to be like, oh, but I'm giving a year to Jesus, it's my gift to him. But no, yes, you are giving it to him and that's beautiful, but the real gift is from God to you in this year, because you're going to be reaping so many gifts for the rest of your life from it, and so many lessons you're going to take with you. And like, I'm not even a couple months out from my year and I know I learned so much. So I can't even imagine what God has in store for you all. So thank you for being here today, for all of our lovely panelists, for a beautiful just testament to the RC Charism. What a blessing. Lisa, do you have anything to say?
No, I just a really huge thanks. I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels my heart burning with so much resonance and so much love for Regnum Christi and gratitude to God for the gift. So thanks for everyone coming. So we'll sign off here. The missionaries for our next session will have a 10-minute break. So at 12:25, if we can meet back for our next speaker. But thank you so much, really, to Matthew, Father Brett, to Eileen, Fiorella, and Maria. Thank you, and to Rachel for leading it.
Awesome. Well, why don't we close in a little prayer? Does anyone feel called to lead? If not, I can lead it.
Rachel, go for it.
Okay, perfect. In the name of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, thank you for this time together with all of these members of the Regnum Christi family. Thank you for showing us your love, especially through this charism. Thank you for these beautiful missionaries. I pray that you reveal yourself to them in unique ways that they've never even experienced before in this year. And I pray that we continue to grow as an RC family in love for you and for each other, and in a love for souls, and to grow the kingdom. Thank you, Lord, for today and for all of these lovely people here with us. Christ our King,
Thy kingdom come.
Mary, Queen of Apostles,
Pray for us.
in the name of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. See you all soon.